You are not as rational as you think you are. And the most unsettling part is that you will probably disagree with that sentence, because the very thing being pointed out is the thing doing the judging. There is a quiet mechanism inside you, subtle, automatic, invisible, that constantly protects your sense of self. It edits your memories, it reshapes your mistakes, it turns uncertainty into confidence and confusion into opinions, and you don't notice it happening. That is the illusion. Not that people are ignorant, but that ignorance often feels exactly like intelligence while it is happening. The philosopher Dietrich Bonhoeffer once warned of something far more terrifying than evil itself: the blindness of those who participate in it without realizing. He wasn't speaking about monsters, he was speaking about ordinary people who believe they are thinking clearly while being carried by forces they never questioned. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. How many of your strongest beliefs did you actually think through, and how many did you inherit, absorb, or adopt because they simply felt right? You don't need to answer out loud. The mind is already defending itself. This is where the trap begins. There is a concept in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It suggests that the less someone knows about a subject, the more confident they tend to be in their understanding of it. But this isn't just about other people. It is about the version of you that feels certain right now. Because confidence is not always a sign of clarity. Sometimes it is just the absence of awareness. Think about a child who learns a few words of a foreign language and believes they are fluent. They don't know what they don't know, so their mind fills the gaps with certainty. Now, zoom out. Adults do the same thing with politics, morality, success, intelligence, even love. We form simplified models of reality and then mistake those models for reality itself. And the mind rewards this illusion. Certainty feels good. Ambiguity feels like weakness. So we choose comfort over complexity again and again. But reality does not care what feels good. Plato described humanity as prisoners inside a cave, watching shadows projected on a wall, believing those shadows were reality. But there is a detail most people miss. The prisoners are not chained by force. They are chained by familiarity. Even if one prisoner were freed and dragged into the light, his first reaction would not be gratitude. It would be pain, confusion, anger. He would want to return to the shadows because the shadows make sense. This is what your mind does when confronted with uncomfortable truth. It does not immediately seek reality. It seeks stability, and stability often wins. But there is another force at play, one far more strategic, far less visible. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In his observations of power, he noted something disturbing. People rarely reward truth. They reward confidence, appearance, and emotional resonance. In other words, the person who seems certain is often more influential than the person who is correct. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. The most confident voices rise. The most uncertain voices disappear. And what remains is not necessarily truth, but performance. So you begin to see how entire systems can drift away from reality without anyone consciously choosing deception. No conspiracy is needed, just human psychology. Now bring this closer. Think about your own life. How many times have you followed someone's advice, not because it was deeply correct, but because it sounded strong? How often have you mistaken loudness for wisdom? And more importantly, how often have you done this with your own thoughts? Because there is an inner voice in you that speaks like a leader even when it is uninformed. It doesn't say, "I might be wrong." It says, "This is obvious." That voice is seductive. It gives identity to uncertainty. It turns fragile assumptions into solid beliefs. But Nietzsche warned about this tendency within us, the human desire to avoid the abyss of not knowing. He suggested that we do not pursue truth as much as we pursue meaning, even if that meaning is false. Because meaning gives direction, and direction feels like control. But control is often just ignorance with confidence. Imagine standing in front of a vast ocean at night. You can only see a small circle of water illuminated by a flashlight. Within that circle, everything looks clear. You can describe the waves, the patterns, the movement, and you begin to believe you understand the ocean. But the ocean is not the circle of light. The ocean is everything you cannot see. Your knowledge works the same way. And the terrifying part is not that the unknown exists. It is that you mistake the small illuminated portion for the whole truth. There is a reason people resist being wrong more than they resist being uninformed. Being uninformed leaves space for possibility. Being wrong threatens identity. So the mind builds defenses, rationalizations, justifications, selective memory. You don't just think thoughts, you protect them, even when they hurt you, even when they limit you, especially when they define you. Bonhoeffer's warning becomes clearer here. He suggested that stupidity is not merely lack of intelligence, but a moral and psychological condition, a surrender of independent thought to collective certainty. In this state, people stop evaluating reality and start repeating it. And the most dangerous part? They believe they are thinking for themselves. Look around your own experience. Have you ever held an opinion so strongly that you later realized you barely understood why you held it? At the time, it felt like clarity. Looking back, it feels like autopilot. That gap, that difference between felt certainty and later understanding, is where most human error lives, not in ignorance, but in misplaced confidence. Now here is the uncomfortable twist. You are not exempt from this. The very act of reading this and agreeing with it can become another illusion, another layer of confidence that says, I see through others, therefore I am beyond it. But awareness of bias does not eliminate bias. It only changes its shape. You can become aware of the Dunning-Kruger effect and still live inside it. You can understand Plato's cave and still prefer the shadows when the light becomes too harsh. You can admire Nietzsche's philosophy and still avoid the abyss of uncertainty in your own decisions. Knowledge does not automatically transform behavior. It only gives you sharper tools to justify what you already believe. So what is the way out? There is no dramatic escape, no sudden enlightenment, only a quieter, more difficult habit. To treat your certainty as a hypothesis rather than a conclusion. To hold your beliefs loosely enough that reality can still reshape them. To allow the possibility that the voice in your head is not always wisdom, but interpretation. This is not comfortable, because certainty feels like ground beneath your feet, and uncertainty feels like falling, but growth only happens in that space of falling. The paradox is this: the more intelligent a mind becomes, the more it realizes how little it actually knows, not because intelligence creates ignorance, but because it expands the horizon of what is visible, and what becomes visible is not answers. It is depth, complexity, contradiction. So when you catch yourself feeling completely right about something, pause for a moment, not to doubt everything, but to remember the limits of your circle of light, because somewhere beyond it, there may be information that would quietly dismantle your certainty if you were willing to see it. And that willingness, that uncomfortable openness, is rare. Not because people cannot think, but because thinking clearly often means letting go of the comfort of being right. In the end, the most dangerous illusion is not that you are wrong. It is that you are already finished thinking. And the moment you believe that, the mind stops exploring and starts defending. But life does not reward defended ideas. It rewards updated ones. And the question you are left with is simple but unsettling. How many of your thoughts are truly yours, and how many are just certainty wearing your face?